Hello everyone. It's time to talk again about the Obama spy scandal. I've come to you a couple of times and asked the question, are you ready for a former president to be put in prison? That question's still open to you. I'm not answering it, I'm asking. We have to decide as a country, are we ready to do that? Should we? Is there reason to? And these are the things that we're exploring as we go through some of this stuff. An interesting thing came up the other day, but before we start, I just wanted to interject that once again we're having a nice anthropogenic global warming day here in Texas. I think it's in the 30s out there. It's getting a little old. We're all ready to fly south down here, just so you know. Kind of reminds me of the old tale of the cat making love to the skunk, and he says, you know what, I've had about all the fun I can stand. That's where I'm at. Anyway, nevertheless, to get back to it, there was a letter sent from Senator Charles Grassley, who is the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who is investigating some of the Obama spy scandal, wherein Obama spied on President Trump before and after the election. Many think illegally, using the intelligence services. But Mr. Grassley sent a letter to Ambassador Susan Rice, and I'm including that in this blog post. If you're watching this on video, I'll include a link to it in the comments. It's on Scribd. But this letter basically is talking about an email that Ambassador Rice, Susan Rice, sent to herself. She sent herself an email on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2017. And she did it to document a meeting that had taken place beforehand. Well, that meeting was January 5th, so, 15 days after the meeting, on Inauguration Day, she decides to document a meeting. And so, again, I'm including this, so that you can read it yourself, and you need to read it, and read it slowly. And as you read it, I want you to just put your partisanship aside, no matter who you care for, who you vote for, where your ideology lies. Just read this little email that she wrote in an honest way. Ask yourself, what is she trying to do here? Just read it and ask yourself, what does it sound like she's trying to do? As with a lot of things, I won't tell you necessarily. I'll give you my opinion sometime. But I'm leaving it to you to decide. I want you to think these things through. We all should investigate to the best of our intellectual ability and decide for ourselves what we think these things are. So I'm putting it out there for you. You can read it. You can decide for yourself. I just think it's an interesting thing. But he sends this email to her, this letter to her. This is an official letter from a Judiciary Committee, investigating possible crimes. And he says, we want to ask you a couple questions about this little email you sent to yourself. You're documenting a meeting that took back on, that happened back on January 5th between President Obama, FBI Director James Comey, Assistant Attorney General Sally Yates, Vice President Joe Biden, and yourself, Ambassador Susan Rice. Which gets to another point. Once you read the letter and know what it's about, why do you think Susan Rice was even at this meeting? She was UN ambassador at the time. This meeting had to do with the Steele dossier and the investigation that was going on into the Trump-Russia thing. Oh my gosh, And her email is all about how Obama was just telling them that, hey, I'm not interfering here. I'm not saying anything at all. I'm just, saying that we need to make sure all our ducks in a row here. And it's very interesting that she would put this email out at this time and apparently completely cover Obama's derriere. Now, isn't that interesting? So Mr. Grassley writes a letter and he says, after we've read this email, we kind of have some questions and we want you to answer them. So by sending this letter from the Judiciary Committee, he's asking for an official response from her on questions he has about this email and this meeting. Now keep in mind, if you have a prosecutor's intellect, he's not asking her any questions that he doesn't already know the answer to. In fact, I don't want to go out on a limb here, but I'm telling you, I read this thing 3 or 4 times. If you read this thing very closely, you would almost think that Senator Grassley knows exactly what went on in that meeting. I'll leave it to you to determine how he may know that. Anyway, that's just an aside. I thought that was quite interesting, just the way, the tone and the way he asked these questions. Of course, prosecutors are good at that kind of stuff. He also knows that Ambassador Rice is a lawyer. She's, very smart. She knows how these things go, and she understands what's happening. And what's happening is that she is being investigated. And so, by the way, it is very possible that President Barack Hussein Obama is also being investigated. By the tone of this message, one could infer that. So I wanted to bring it up. I wanted you to read it. I want to continue this conversation and have you understand that there's a lot of things going on right now that a lot of people don't quite know how to put their finger on. However, if you look at it in terms of an internal investigation and maybe even a counterintelligence operation, and if you followed this thing from where it began and the way it's tracked, bit by bit, piece by piece, through these committees in Congress, through what President Trump has said and done, through what Jeff Sessions has said and done, through the Office of Inspector General Michael Horowitz has a report coming out pretty soon. He's been investigating for over a year some of these things that have been going on. They already have, in my opinion, the lower level people. Several people in the DOJ and the FBI have already quit. They're lawyering up left and right. They know what's up. These peons, Peter Strzok and his paramour, Lisa Page, they're caught dead to rights. They got text messages all over the place show what they were doing. And so the lower fish, the lower level fish have been netted already. And I think what you're seeing here with this letter from Senator Grassley is that this net is being expanded. We're throwing this net out a little further now. Let's see how far up we can go and catch the fish. Maybe even old Grandpa, Barack Hussein Obama. Because it all comes down to him. And I don't say that with glee in my heart. I say that with sadness. I despise the man. I wouldn't vote for him in a million years. But I don't have any joy in finding out that a president of the United States used the intelligence community to spy illegally on his political opponent. And then, having lost, having Hillary lost the election, his party lost the election, he continued to use that spying operation to try to impeach a sitting president, a duly elected president of the United States. This is unheard of in the history of this nation. It is sedition at the very least. They tried to unseat the government. And for you to believe that Barack Hussein Obama is not guilty, and you may, and you have every right to. If you believe that Barack Hussein Obama was not involved in any of this, keep in mind, what you have to believe is this. The director of the FBI of the United States of America was complicit in a counterintelligence operation against the incoming president of the United States of America and did not tell Barack Obama about it. Several lower level people in the FBI were involved in sedition against the United States of America and did not tell FBI Director Comey or the President of the United States, and the President was completely unaware it was going on. Individuals within the Department of Justice were complicit in a conspiracy to bring down the duly elected President of the United States of America, and nobody told Barack Hussein Obama about it, and none of his lackeys, whatever you want to call them, his intelligence people, he gets an intelligence briefing every day. And so every day you believe that the intelligence people were coming in and they weren't saying a thing about this. Nothing. They kept him in the dark the whole time. So your best bet that Barack Obama is not guilty is that, number one, he is completely a rube and an idiot who can't even see what's happening right in front of his face. Or number two, he's surrounding himself with a plethora of people who were disloyal, dishonest, and corrupt, and were doing things behind his back without him knowing. They were all put into place by this man. He's the one that hired Attorney General of the United States. He's the one that hired the Deputy Director and the FBI Director, James Comey. He hired these people. He put them in place. You have to believe that he put all these people in place without any knowledge whatsoever of what they were doing and what they would do and what kind of people they were and what kind of character they had. So it's a you're on pretty thin ice, but I hand it to you. If you want to stick with him, you just keep that up. We'll see where it goes. But the bottom line is that this stuff happened. It is documented. And let me go on record as saying that it's my opinion that they have already flipped some people. There's some names, I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to give air to an ongoing investigation. But there's some names out there that aren't being mentioned in any of these memos, any of these inquiries and stuff. These people aren't being called up to testify before Congress like everybody else is. And if they are, they're testifying in private. They're not testifying publicly. But there's some people up here who are directly in the chain of command, had to have complete knowledge of what was going on, and yet they're not involved in this investigation to the extent some of these other people are. That tells me that people have been flipped. They're trying to save their pensions. They've turned state's witness. They may have even been wired, for all we know. And so this is just going to get more interesting. It's going to continue, and I'll bring you more when I get it. And I will continue to ask the question. Are you prepared for a past president of the United States of America to go to prison? What if he was black? That wouldn't look good. You know what? It bugs the hell out of me. Why couldn't the first black president of the United States been Thomas Sowell, Herman Cain? I mean, give me anybody but Barack Obama. I want you to understand something, and I mean this from the deepest part of my heart. I don't hold anything against Barack Obama because he's black. I hold it against him because he's red. He's a communist.